Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
And for those who have not been here to Temple Bethel ever, welcome. And those who it's been a couple of years maybe since Jacob became Bar Mitzvah, welcome back. It's great as we gather together on this beautiful Shabbat afternoon for our Mincha, for our afternoon service and Havdalah, as we come together to celebrate Sabrina Cohn becoming Bar Mitzvah. So Sabrina, let me be the first to say Mazel Tov to you and to your family, the first of many Mazel Tovs that we will share today as we celebrate together. Now, this service, Sabrina will be leading most of it. She'll let you know exactly where we are in the prayer book, which is the Mitzvah, the big blue prayer book in front of you. All the prayers that we'll be sharing are either transliterated into English characters, or we'll be sharing the English translations or interpretations of them. We'll let you know where you are. The program that Mary put together also is very detailed as well with some of the page numbers, so hopefully no one will be lost, and you can always just ask the people around you as well. And just a last reminder is that the only people that we've invited to be using cameras today are the two folks over there and the nice lady over there. Hi there. And otherwise, I just would invite everyone just to power off your cell phones, and to, hopefully everyone's checked in and whatnot. I can tell you right now that the Red Sox are up 4-1 right now, so I'm very happy about that. We'll see how it is at the end of the game. Go Dodgers, go Cards, and see you tomorrow. But otherwise, as we prepare to continue our service, I'd like to invite Scott and Mary Cohn to come up and present Sabrina with her telling.
Today, as you become Bar Mitzvah and take upon yourself the responsibilities of being a Jew, we present you with this talit to be worn by you with pride as a sign and symbol of the continuity of our tradition and of our faith. How privileged we feel that you are our daughter. We are thankful for our first 13 years with you, and we are so expectant of many joyous occasions in the years to come.
We'll continue on page 124, page 124. So I invite Lauren and Rachel Kurtz to come forward and to share a reading.
May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture.
May the door of the synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life.
Shabbat afternoon service is different than the morning service. There is less liturgy. In fact, we really enter in with Psalm 145 called Ashrei. I'd like to invite now Sabrina to come and begin to lead us. We are on page 338.
David's song of praise. I will exalt you, my God and sovereign, and bless your name forever and ever.
Every day will I bless you and praise your name forever and ever.
Great God is Adonai and much acclaimed. God's greatness cannot be fathomed.
One
generation shall laud your works to another and declare your mighty acts.
The glorious majesty of your splendor and your wondrous acts will I recite.
They shall talk of the might of your awesome deeds, and I will recount your greatness.
They shall celebrate your abundant goodness and sing joyously of your beneficence.
Adonai is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in kindness.
Adonai is good to all, and God's mercy is upon all God's works.
All your works shall praise you, Adonai, and your faithful ones shall bless you.
They shall talk of your majesty and your sovereignty, and speak of your might.
To make God's mighty acts known among the worlds, and the rest of your glory of sovereignty.
Your sovereignty is eternal. Your dominion is for all generations.
Adonai supports all who stumble, and makes all who are against him straight.
The eyes of all look to you expectantly, and you give them their food when it is due.
You give it up commandedly, feeding every creature to its heart's content.
Adonai is beneficent in all ways and faithful in all works.
Adonai is near to all who call, and God seeks sincerity.
Adonai fulfills the wishes of those who fear God. Adonai hears their cry and delivers them.
Adonai watches over all who love God, but all the wicked God will destroy.
My mouth shall utter the praise of Adonai, and all creatures shall bless God's holy name forever and ever.
We will bless you, God, now and always.
תהילת אדוני ידבר כי מברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם הללויה.
We continue with Tefillah on page 344. Please stand.
ופיה כי תהילתך אדוני שפתי תפתח ופיה כי תהילתך ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואבותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק אלוהי יעקב אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha ba'gevurot, umidomela, melech memit umekayem, u'matzmiach Yeshua,
Your might, O God, is everlasting. Help us to use our strength for good and not evil. You are the source of life and blessing. Help us to choose life for ourselves and our children. You are the support of the fallen. Help us to lift up the fallen. You are the author of freedom. Help us to free the captive. You are our hope in death as in life. Help us to keep faith with those who sleep in the dust. Your might, O God, is everlasting. Help us to use our strength for good, for blessing and not for curse, for life and not death, for abundance, not want. We continue on page 355. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer to life, to peace, and to joy. May we find true rest, holiness in our deeds, worth in our study of Torah. Let us feed on the love of goodness. Let us drink from the love of goodness. Restrain our thirst for excess, and cleanse our hearts to serve life well. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer in life, in peace, and in joy. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levacha v'yira na'avod. Modim anachnu lach, she'atah hu Adonai Eloheinu, ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו לעולם ועד. צור חיינו מגן אישנו, אתה הוא לדור ודור. נודה לך ונצהר תפילתך, על חיינו המסורים בידיך, ועל נשמותינו הפקודות לך, ועל ניסך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלותיך וטובותיך שבכל עת ערב ובוקר וסוף ורעים. הטוב, כי לא חלו רחמך, וחמרכם, כי לא תמו חסדך, מעולם קיווינו לך. ועל כולם יתברך ויתרומם שמך, מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד. וכל החיים יודוך סלע, ויהללו את שמך באמת, האל ישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shemcha u'cha na'eh lechodot. We conclude our tefillah on page 358 with a prayer for peace. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amacha tasim le'olam. Ki atah hu melech Adon l'chol hashalom. V'tov be'enecha levarech et Amacha Yisrael b'chol et u'chol sha'al b'shlomecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Amvarech et Amo Yisrael Bashalom. We join in silent prayer.
Shabbat Shalom. One of the most fulfilling parts of my work as a rabbi is to help prepare a young woman like Sabrina to become Bat Mitzvah. Now, in the months leading up to this service, Sabrina and I met regularly to explore the verses of Torah that she will be chanting shortly. We also discussed other things as well, related not only to her becoming bat mitzvah, but to life in general. And as is our custom here at Temple Bethel, I invited Sabrina to ask me any question that has to do with any aspect of Jewish life that she wanted me to begin answering today. As you will hear, when Sabrina shares her Devar Torah later in our service, she's interested in issues of justice and equality. Being the compassionate person she is, and one who wants things in life to be fair, Sabrina was concerned about the fate of the Pharaoh mentioned in this week's Torah portion, who, by the way, is a different Pharaoh than the one from the Moses story later on. In our portion, we learn that this Pharaoh takes Sarai, Avram's wife, into his harem. Pharaoh does this because he was told by Avram that Sarai was his sister, not his wife. Because of Pharaoh's unintentional transgression, taking another man's wife, God punished him. Now there's clearly more to the story, and I'll let Sabrina comment on it later. But that said, Sabrina is interested to know, and here's her question. She's interested to know why God punished Pharaoh, even though Pharaoh didn't know that he had done anything wrong. So should Pharaoh be held liable for his actions, even if he didn't know he was transgressing? Now, Sabrina, I'm sure you'll be surprised to hear this, but yes, this is a very good question for which there really isn't an answer from Pharaoh's point of view. And no, you didn't stump me. There's just not an answer. Now, we can sit here comfortably and question God's judgment when it came to Pharaoh. However, this whole narrative is intended to tell us more about Avram, Sarai, and God than it is about Pharaoh. When you teach us the story in a few minutes, Sabrina, an unflattering image of Avram will be revealed. Avram is willing to sell Sarai, his wife, into Pharaoh's harem in order to save his own life. And she agrees with this plan. But instead of Avram suffering for his selfishness and his lack of faith, he ends up benefiting wildly from the sale. As the text says, he acquired sheep, cattle, slaves, and more on account of Sarai. Now, some modern commentators, especially Tikva Freimer-Kensky, try to illuminate Sarai in this episode. Freimer-Kensky suggests that Avram's actions so angered God that God had to redeem Sarai and restore her honor and character by afflicting Pharaoh. He then becomes the fall guy for the story. It's not fair, Sabrina, but that's the way it is. And God only knows why it turned out this way. Until God intervened, Sarai was an object, more like property, less than a person. The focus of the story could have been left on Avram and his experience. However, for God, Sarai's experience was important as well. Avram wasn't moved by Sarai's suffering, but God was. And God chose to intervene by afflicting Pharaoh. If God hadn't done anything, it's possible that Sarai would have remained in Pharaoh's harem for the rest of her life, while Avram would have eventually returned to Canaan, a much wealthier man than before. Avram and Pharaoh took away Sarai's personhood. God restored it. But for that to happen, God had to punish Pharaoh until he finally discovered the truth about Sarai. Now, you might say, Sabrina, that God could have done something less harsh to Pharaoh, that God could have freed Sarai differently. But that's not the way these stories usually work. God acts in mysterious ways, and most times we can never fully understand God's motivation. Now, before we totally let Avram off the hook, one lesson from our tradition suggests that Avram's punishment occurred generations later, when all Israelites were enslaved by a different Pharaoh. If Avram had acted more selflessly, more faithfully even, perhaps the period of Egyptian slavery wouldn't have happened. But then again, Sabrina, this is all hindsight. So while not condoning Pharaoh's suffering, perhaps we can find solace from learning how God took care of the one person who had little power or influence in this narrative, Sarai. God stood by her when she was most vulnerable, protected her, and freed her. Basically, this episode played out God's role throughout ancient Israelite history through this one person, while foreshadowing what might come in the future. We might not have preferred anyone to suffer, however, better Pharaoh perhaps than Sarai. So Sabrina, I'm not, but then again, as I said before, there really isn't an answer. The only person who knows why or why not something is done is the person who does the act. And until you and God have a sit down, you can ask her directly, hey, why did you do that to Pharaoh? Until that time comes, Sabrina, we'll never know. All we can do is try to come to some better understanding and find plausible explanations that may help us deal with these difficulties. So in the end, Sabrina, Abram and Sarai are reunited. They return to Canaan, have a son, Isaac, and through him initiate the growth of the Jewish people from then until now, so that today, after that terrible episode with Abram, Sarai, and Pharaoh thousands of years ago, so that today, Sabrina, we can celebrate your becoming Bat Mitzvah today. Shabbat Shalom. So in just a few minutes, a few moments, we will continue with our Torah service. And for those of Sabrina's classmates who have been coming to B'nai Mitzvah over the past year or so, you know that the talk about the Torah scrolls we have been using has been different than it was in years past, like when Jacob became Bar Mitzvah, because for most of this past year, we were using 2 Torah scrolls, one to pass and one to read from. Well, today, Sabrina, you become the first person in your Bar and Bat Mitzvah class to read from the Czech Torah. And this is a very special occasion for us to mark today. You see, because for most of this past year, the Czech Torah there were some errors and some defects in it that need to be repaired. We finally got it repaired. We consecrated it last week at Simchat Torah, and we're now bringing it back into use. So we're not going to hear about the children's Torah, we're just going to hear about the Czech Torah. Because Sabrina, for us to undertake the repair of this Torah was a really important value of our congregation. It was a true priority. Because this Torah scroll that we're going to be using was rescued from the ashes of the Holocaust. It was a Torah scroll that had been used in a town of České Budějovice in the Czech Republic. And it had been used for dozens of years, maybe even 100 years, not even sure how long it was used, in this once vibrant town. But during World War II, during the time of the Nazi occupation and the Nazis' plundering of Europe, the town of České Budějovice and the Jewish community of České Budějovice was destroyed. The synagogue was destroyed, most of the people in that town were killed, but this Torah scroll was preserved. You see, during those years of the Holocaust, from 1939 to 1945, as Hitler's army was destroying all of Europe, the Nazis would go into these towns and villages, destroy all the people, destroy the buildings, but save the ritual objects like this Torah scroll that we'll be using soon. It was Hitler's design that after the Holocaust, that there would be a museum opened up in Berlin, perhaps, an anthropological museum to have some of the artifacts of what Hitler had hoped would be the extinct Jewish people. During those terrible years, we know that 6 million Jews were exterminated by the Nazis. We know that 5 million others perished as well, just because they were different than others. However, Hitler did not fulfill his goal of eradicating European Jewry or even worldwide Jewry. We know that, Sabrina, because we are here today, the sanctuary filled with people. You, your friends and family, so many from our Temple Bethel community who day in, day out continue to celebrate and perpetuate Jewish life. This Torah scroll, along with about 1,600 others, had been stored in a synagogue in London for a number of years until someone had the idea to lend them out on permanent loans to synagogues throughout the world. And we are fortunate to have a Torah scroll that not only that we are in possession of one, but it's one that had been good enough to read from, had some defects we couldn't read from it, but now it's been restored and we can read from it again. And Sabrina, when you hold this Torah scroll in your arms, when you march it around the congregation, when you read it, you will be linked to almost every bar mitzvah who has ever stood on this bima in the last 30 or 40 years, but you'll certainly begin this new link for the rest of the members of your bat mitzvah, of your class, and those who will come ahead, continuing this long tradition of celebrating this particular Torah scroll. So Sabrina, before you take this Torah scroll in your arms and before you chant from it, I'd like to invite you to come forward and to share your bat mitzvah pledge.
I am about to receive the gift of Torah and share in the sacred responsibility of teaching Torah to others. I am able to do this because I have studied and because I have made a commitment to the value of learning. In order for me to grow as a Jew, and share with the others the blessing I have received, I accept the responsibility to continue with my Jewish education through confirmation and perhaps even beyond. As bat mitzvah, I am responsible for the mitzvah of learning, and I will fulfill that mitzvah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has made us holy with your commandments and commanded us to be occupied with the words of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamlamed Torah lamcha Yisrael. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who teaches Torah to your people Israel.
As we prepare to take the Sefer Torah from the Ark and to pass from one generation to the next, I invite to come to the Bima to open the Ark, Haley Heyer, Riley Harper, Rebbe Frohlichman Gonzalez, and Matan Cohn, along with Scott and Mary Cohen, who will share a special blessing for Sabrina. We are on page 364. Page 364, please stand.
Sabrina, this is my blessing for you. Be interested in everything. Be curious. Explore. Be adventurous. Try everything. Have fun. But also be serious. Make a difference. Don't sit back and watch. Go for it. Take risks. Be involved. Help other people. Help this planet. Honor your Jewish heritage and traditions. Have a purpose in life. Your purpose gives your life meaning. May you be a blessing to others. May you pursue justice. May you feel passionate about doing your part to help repair the world. May you continue to study Torah and to let it help shape who you will become. May you be not only smart, but may you become wise. May you look beyond the surface of things. Life is about making choices. May you have the courage and good judgment to make good choices in your life. I love you.
Did you notice I wore a tie? She doesn't see me in a tie very often, but I wore one for my cousin Stacy, and I wore one for my mom, for my sister, and for my wife, and of course for Jacob and for you. I also got shoes, you see. I have really fat feet. It's hard to get shoes. I had to go online, and I'm wearing ladies' nurses' clogs. Yeah, you're right. What do you think about that? Nobody ever said that in that bat mitzvah speech. The last 13 years have been both an honor and a pleasure for me. To be able to raise a little girl into a young woman makes me proud beyond words. My first thought at becoming your father was that I couldn't wait to get to know you. And I can tell you that it has been a true pleasure. Getting to know all the things about you, either that you've learned or they're just inside you. I'm so proud to not only call you my daughter, but also one of my very, very best friends. I so look forward to every day that you are in my life with you and your brother and your mom is all I can imagine. I hope one day you and Jacob find people that you can love and trust like I have in your mother. You're pretty cute too. My blessing for you, may you find love, may you be true, may people be able to depend on you, and may you open your heart even if it's difficult. Every moment that I've spent with you has been a blessing to me. Thank you so much for coming into our lives. I couldn't be prouder of you. We all have our ups and downs, but you constantly amaze me. Nobody ever loved a daughter, or a wife, or a son more than I love you.
We now remove this special Sefer Torah. Sabrina will place it in the arms of your parents. We'll then place it on your shoulders. So you'll carry the weight, responsibility, and joy of our tradition. Physically and symbolically. Got it?
Hallelujah. a translation sheet which has the reading on it as well. And as we call each of the aliyot, literally the coming up to Torah, we will call people in Sabrina's extended family to honor with each of these aliyot. And so we call all of those who are listed in aliyah number 1. Yamdu, Foyim Yankov ben Kasil, Yosef ben Moshe ben Yohanna, Miriam bat Abraham ben Sarah, Avigdor ben Kasil, Sivia bat Moshe ben Yohanna, Gadol David ben Yaakov ben Simcha, Batya bat Avigdor ben Sivia, Yaakov Chaim ben Asher David HaLevi v'Shena Rezel, Sarachel bat Asher David HaLevi v'Shena Rezel, Paul Siever, Aliyah Torah. Please come to this side of
Baruch Hu Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach Yoman Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notei HaTorah. Amen.
Asher asu v'charan v'yetzu lalachat arza Canaan v'yavohu arza Canaan v'yavor Avram ba'aretz ad Cohn Shechem ad Elon Moreh v'hafnani az ba'aretz v'yera Adonai Avram v'yomer l'zayachav eitin et ha'aretz hazot v'yiven sham mizbeach l'Adonai hanereh elav v'yatek misham ha'hara mikedem l'vid'el v'yet oholo vid'el miyam v'ha'ar mikedem v'yiven sham mizbeach l'Adonai v'yikra b'shem Adonai v'yisa Avram haloch v'nasor hanecha. Avram took his wife Sarai and his brother's son Lot and all the wealth they had amassed and the persons they had acquired in Haran. They set out for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in the land of Canaan, Avram passed through the land as far as the site of Shechem at Tirith of Moreh. The Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Avram and said, I will assign this land to your heirs. And he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved onto the hill country east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And he built there an altar to the Lord and invoked the Lord by name. Then Avram journeyed by stages toward the Negev.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu mikol ha'amim v'natan atah b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai Notei HaTorah. Amen.
And now we invite forward all of those for the second aliyah. Yamdu, Sarah Anita bat Yosef and Miriam, Yaakov Yitzchak ben Gadol David Batya, Adam Katriel ben Gadol David Batya, Miriam Golde bat Gadol David Batya, Maria Yohana bat Gadol David Batya, Yaakov Alian Ben Herschel ben Miriam, Shamir ben Meir, Aliyah LaTorah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamorah. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayehi Rav ba'at, va'yer Avram yitzrema magusham, ki chavel hara'ah ba'aretz. Vayehi ka'asher hikri ve'otach yahayu, imrina achoti at leman yitamli b'vorech, v'tan nafshi b'glalech. There was a famine in the land, and Avram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. And he was about to enter Egypt. He said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. If the Egyptians see you and think she is his wife, they will kill me and let you live. Please say you are my sister, so that it may go well for me because of you, and that I may remain alive thanks to you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
And for the third Aliyah, we invite forward Sabrina's parents, Scott and Mary Cohn, Yamdu, Herschel ben Avigdor ben Sivia, Miriam bat Abraham ben Sarah, Aliyah LaTorah.
Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayehi kavo Avram mitzrayma, vayeru hamitzrim et ha'isha ki yafa hi me'od, vayeru ota sarei Paro, vayhalalu ota el Paro, vatukach ha'isha beit Paro, u'lavram heitir b'avoram, vayhilot tzavakar v'chamorim, va'avadim u'shpachot, va'atonot u'chmalim, vaynaga Adonai el Paro, naga'im gedolim ve'et beitah, al davar Sarai eshet Avram. When Avram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw how very beautiful the woman was. Pharaoh's courtiers saw her and praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's palace. And because of her, it went well with Avram. He acquired sheep, oxen, asses, male and female slaves, she-asses, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his household with mighty plague on account of Sarai, the wife of Avram.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. Amen.
Finally, now we call Sabrina for her first time as Bat Mitzvah. Tamod, 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 Habachura Bat HaMitzvah, Manoarut Bat Hershel Miriam, Chazak, Chazak, V'nitchazek.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Vayikra Pharaoh le'aram, vayomer mazot asitali, lama lo higatali, ki ishtcha hi, lama amarta akoti ekach ota lilisha v'ta hinei ishtcha kach balech v'tzav alav haro anashim v'shalchu oto v'ishto kol asher lo v'yal Avram mimitzrayim v'ishto v'kol asher lo v'lo timo hanegva. Pharaoh sent for Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why do you say she is my sister, so that I took her as my wife? Now, here is your wife. Take her and be gone." And Pharaoh put men in charge of him, and they sent him off with his wife and all that he possessed from Egypt. Abram went up into the Negev with his wife and all that he possessed, together with Lot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam v'torah v'tokenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Invite you to turn to page 374. Page 374, and please stand as the Torah is lifted and read.
Page 370, sorry.
Oh, 370.
I wrong place. Vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai meyad Moshe. Vezot HaTorah, vezot HaTorah, vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe, vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe לפני בני ישראל, לפני בני ישראל. וזאת התורה, 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 וזאת התורה.
Please be seated.
Is chosen by God as the first Jew. Yay! God tells Abram to leave his home and go to the land that the Lord will show him. God promises Abram many blessings for him and his descendants, and leads him to the land of Canaan. Later in the portion, there is a famine in Canaan, and Abram, his wife Sarai, and his nephew Lot leave Canaan for Egypt. When they arrive, Abram realizes that his wife Sarai, who was really beautiful, like me, will be spotted by the Egyptians. Avram fears that they will take Sarai into the house of Pharaoh and he'll wind up dead. So Avram decides to deceive them by saying that Sarai is his sister. He does this out of fear, in an effort to save himself. I'm going to tell you my interpretation of this text and how it relates to something very important: equal rights for all. Let me pose a couple of questions for you. Why did Sarai have no say in any of Avram's conversations with the Egyptians? If Sarai had been given a voice, what do you think she would have said? I know Sarai could have helped Avram with his plan. Sarai could have reminded Avram that God promised to protect him when he went to Egypt. He didn't have to lie and give her up to Pharaoh. He needed to trust in God. Back in those times, as I was horrified to learn, women were treated like possessions instead of people. Supposedly, no one would have cared about Sarai's opinion, even if she had said anything. Hello? Anybody out there? Listening? I can make this a high holy day length sermon if you don't pay close attention to what this young woman has to say. Anywho, it's not that Avram didn't ask her what she thought was right. The Torah tells us that Pharaoh replied in the following way after he found out that Avram had lied to him, and that Sarai was his wife and not his sister. Pharaoh said, "What have you done to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she was your sister, so that I took her as a wife for myself? Look, now that it turns out she is your wife, take and be gone." The men in the story, Pharaoh and Avram, don't care what women have to say. They act superior to them, but they're not. Pharaoh said, "Take and be gone," as if Sarai is a possession for the men to trade back and forth. In the world of equality that we're going to need to build together, he would have said, "You may go with Sarai, even though we'll totally miss her and all of her awesomeness." Seriously, she's not a happy monkey toy. Lying didn't help Avram in the end. He would have been kicked out of Egypt either way, but the way he chose meant that someone else took his wife. It's certainly not as bad today as it was then, but nowadays, some people still treat women like possessions, as servants and slaves, and sometimes much worse. Women contribute so much to society, yet some women still treat women like they're nothing more than an iPhone, or for older people, a rotary phone. Everyone is created equal. I'm proud that my school, Renaissance at RHB, does a terrific job of making sure everyone is treated equally. Boys and girls, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, auditory, visual, and even challenge learners. We're all respected, which teaches us to respect everyone else. They do this by making sure there are well-trained and very appreciated teachers guiding me and my fellow students to be the best that we can be. I like to sing, act, do movie makeup, draw, and cheer. But, like the average teenager, I also watch television. In some of the more popular shows, the man characters joke to the women in their life in a very respectful way. In 3 particular programs in particular, the main characters are basically a dumb father, a devoted housewife and mother, a smart daughter, a dumb son, and a super intelligent baby or dumb alien or poochie. In these shows, the men treat the women like they're shoes. They walk all over them, but like a really good pair of shoes, the women hold up. The smart daughter is often ignored or mistreated. I don't think I'm overreaching when I say that we're all humans. We're all equal, and the sooner that we realize that, the sooner the world can get back on track. My house isn't like these television shows. My mother and father treat each other equally, and they each have their own responsibilities. The same goes for Jacob and me. We oftentimes, but not always, take care of each other. My parents make Jacob and I do the same things. I don't have to do some things just because I'm a girl. Things are equal in my house. Well, Jacob and I are equal, and my mom and dad are equal, but we're not equal with them because they are our parents. In my Torah portion, the men treat the women terribly. Today, men treat women a little less terribly. The world should be more like my home, where people are treated equally. Or if parents aren't exactly equal with children, we must at least respect each other. By working one person at a time to make the world a better place for future generations, it will lead to a better place based on peace and equality. Please join me in singing Shekach V'Yanu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Blessed be you, Adonai, sovereign of all time and space, for giving us life, for sustaining us in life, and for enabling us to reach this very special moment today.
Amen. So as we prepare to return the Sefer Torah to the Ark and to bless Sabrina in front of the open Ark, I invite you to please turn to page 374, and please stand. Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Ki Nishgav Shmo Levado. Let us praise the name of Adonai, for God's name alone is exalted. So Sabrina, what a joy and blessing it is to be able to share some words to you, for you, in front of this open ark, in front of the commanding presence of our tradition as represented by these Torah scrolls. Now Sabrina, so much of you has been shared with us throughout today. Your bright, beautiful, bubbly personality, your beautiful voice, your sense of humor, and I think that we all have gotten to know you even better than we perhaps did before. You chose in a very rich Torah portion, you chose verses that most people would not necessarily have chosen. You chose one of the more challenging stories certainly in the whole Abraham narrative, looking at this episode of Abraham basically selling his wife into slavery, which again is really not a very nice thing to do, to say the least. But I want to remind you of a couple of other pieces in this Torah portion. One is that in the early part, Avram is called by God. Avram hears God's voice and responds. One blessing that I have for you, we all have for you, is that when you hear that voice of God calling out to you, sending you into the world to do good things, to do justice, to treat people equally and fairly, that you will, like Avram, say, Hineni, here I am. Later in the Torah portion as well, we learn of the covenantal relationship that God establishes with Abraham, who then becomes Abraham, and all of the Jewish people. Another blessing and prayer and hope for you, Sabrina, is that you will understand what it means to be a person of the covenant, a person who takes on the responsibility to speak up for those who have no voice, to bring light and life into the lives of others. And in all of these years that I've known you, Sabrina, I've known you for ever since I've gotten here, and we've spent a lot of time together, both inside the synagogue and outside of the synagogue, seen you grown up from a little girl this big, who today, in those shoes at least, is a little taller than me. Well, remember your brother was all like 90 taller than the rabbi for the bar mitzvah, but man, he's like almost taller than Cantor now. But for all of these, for the journey that we did together, and for the journey that will continue as you continue to bring your being presence and such a joy to our congregation. We all feel very blessed, and it's a privilege for you to share this special blessing with you. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. May God's face look kindly upon you and be very good to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God reach out to you, Sabrina, giving you, inspiring you with so many gifts of love and laughter, of justice and happiness, and above all, So Sabrina, I don't get this request very often, but it was a testament for the love that your brother has for you. He asked if he could share just a couple of words for you, and I'd like to invite Jacob to. God knows what he's going to say, but because I sure don't.
All right.
Sabrina. As your older brother, it's my job to watch over you. And throughout these 13 years, I've watched you grow from a little pain in my neck into a 13-year-old pain in my neck. Yeah, but in all seriousness, you are an incredible little sister who I always seem to have fun with. And true that throughout the years, we've had our differences, but that's just what being a family is all about. We'll bicker and fight, hug and laugh, and occasionally team up to drive mom and dad insane. For this speech, I tried to think of a very happy moment in our lives, and the first that popped into my head was when I jumped into the Hudson River to retrieve a hat that got blown off your head. That wasn't a joke. The first thought that went through my head after I got out was, by God, it's cold! The second was, I'm glad I did this. The first reason being, it stopped you from using your puppy dog eyes on me. The second reason was because the sheer joy and appreciation on your face afterwards was simply priceless. And I think that no matter what you say to your friends, you have to admit that you care for me too. I think although you don't say it much, you always give me hints that you care for me. The most common of which is when you ask me to give you a piggyback ride, and my way of showing my care is by saying yes. To end this speech, I thought I'd give one more example about how I love you. And I don't know if I ever told you about this one, but this last summer, when we went on our cruise to Alaska, very beautiful by the way, I spent one of the nights up all night with a couple of friends. That night, I went with them for a midnight swim, but first, I came back to our cabin to grab my bathing suit. I saw you fast asleep on your bed with the covers half down. I grabbed the teddy bear that I had won the night before, put it in your arms, pulled up the covers, and kissed you on the head before I left. I still have the bear, and every time I look at it, it reminds me of that night. To finish off this speech, I sat in front of the computer for 10 minutes, just thinking of possible ways to end it. I drew a blank. So, I'll simply end it by saying, Mazel Tov, and I love you.
Nicely done, Jacob. Okay, Marvin, top that.
It's my pleasure to invite, representing our board of directors, Marvin Belzer.
You make it easy for me. So Sabrina, on behalf of Temple Bethel and its board of directors, I'd like to give you Mazel Tov. And I'd really like to thank you for, I think, doing a superb job teaching us today. And also sharing, I think people can hear me with a loud voice, but for sharing, you know, your lovely voice. I mean, really, it was really special, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I thank you. Now, when I come up here and I talk to, you know, Barb about Mitzvah, I always try to think back of my memories of youth. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but my first memories of you are from Torah school camp. And I was the doctor at Torah school camp, and you were nice enough to come keep me company several times during Torah school camp. And actually got to know you, and it was, you know, really, really fun. But what I've noticed about you, and I think everybody notices about you, is you have amazing energy and amazing enthusiasm. And I really, really encourage you never to lose that. You haven't lost it yet, and just keep it up because it's wonderful. All right, so business. This is the business here. Ah, they're already out. All right. So there's two of these other guys. Good. So, first and second edition, it looks like. So there are many books for you to have, and we'll just hold them here, and you'll have lots of time to read, I'm sure, next week when you're at camp, right? Also, the board of directors always is pleased to give you a high holiday machzor, and look forward to having you come back high holidays next year and maybe chanting a little more for us. We have this lovely certificate commemorating your bat mitzvah, and I'm sure your parents will frame that and put that up in your room or in the house. And, and lastly, the traditional $250 nifty gift certificate to go to Israel. I hope you get the chance to use it later in your life and really enjoy it. And last but not least, again, Mazel Tov, thank you, and you really feel like you blessed us today.
I'd like to thank some very important people for their gifts, their help, and their support. First of all, everyone who's filled up this sanctuary with such joy and love. It makes me feel very happy that you could come. I'd like to thank the Sisterhood for the lovely Kiddush cup that I received last night. It's cool to have one of my very own. The Board of Directors for my beautiful Bat Mitzvah certificate, and for my very own high holiday Machzor. The North American Federation of Temple Youth, or NIFTY, for the $250 250 gift certificate, or gifty, towards my trip to Israel after my confirmation year. The Los Angeles Federation for the book Israel Matters. Rabbi Briskin for helping me with my Devar Torah, for the book Tough Questions Jews Ask, and for being an inspirational leader for our Temple Bethel community. Thank you, Cantor Davidson, for teaching me everything, literally everything. My Bat Mitzvah service, trope, teaching me how to sing, everything. And he's got an awesome voice too, right? Yeah. Debbie Rowe as well, because without her leadership for all these years of my Jewish learning, and being one of those strong Jewish women role models, I wouldn't have been able to read any of the Hebrew or understand what it all means or tell people what I think. I would like to especially thank my mom and dad for helping me to study and work through this, even though sometimes they were a real pain. Thank you to Jacob for giving me some advice about my Bat Mitzvah, and that lovely speech you made. It really made me feel good for you to share how much you care. And the feelings are mutual. Thank you, Birdie and Grandma, for buying me all my dresses and shoes. I could not have asked for better grandparents. And a special thanks to some people who have flown in for this special occasion. Uncle Jay, my Uncle Kirby, Aunt Renee, and Lindy Sofer, my cousins Krant and Matan Cohn, my cousins Paul and Stacey Siver. Also, a special thanks to the Kurtzes for coming down from Northern California. The end.
So Sabrina, you're welcome. So by the way, the reason why you have two of these books is because for some reason Jacob's that I got a few years ago never got home, but I actually just found it in my office. So Jacob, this is yours as well. that's why I get two. This is yours. Here you go, Jacob. See? One for everybody. And Sabrina, thank you for leading us so beautifully and ably in learning and worship today. You really have shown what a strong woman role model you are for all of the young women in our congregation who look up to you and who will also continue to follow in your footsteps as they become bat mitzvah in the months and the years ahead. So thank you. A couple of notes of housekeeping as we prepare to end our service. So immediately after our closing song of Oseh Shalom, the morning service that's usually end, you go and schmooze, but this is an afternoon service with Havdalah, the ceremony in which we mark the separation between Shabbat and as we enter into the new week. And at that point, it would be my pleasure to invite a close family friend, Rabbi Ken Milhander, I'll introduce him more later, who will help lead that service as well. And immediately after Havdalah, I'll invite all of your Torah School friends and classmates, or anyone from the Temple Bethel Torah School, to come and to lead a motzi. And then after that, we'll be able to make our way over to the Torrance Civic Center. Now, if you need directions, they are in the back there. this very brightly colored. The backs, again, mazel tov to you, to your parents, your brother, your grandparents, and all your friends and family and yourselves. Our concluding prayers begin on page 586 towards the bottom of the page. Elena, please stand.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר ראשית, שלא עשה גילויי הרצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונה, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר היה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
On page 595. There are stars up above so far away we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. If you are observing Shiva or Shloshim or Yortzeit, the first 7 or 30 days of remembrance or the anniversary of the death of a loved one, I invite you to please say that person's name as my hand goes around the room.
Michael Sager.
Bernie Feldman and Harvey Horwitz.
Kelly Muller. Julie Bauer.
Michael Simon.
Zichronam Levracha, in the memory of all of our loved ones, for a blessing. Page 598. Yitgadal
Yitgadash Shnei Rabba, V'yamad Yivrach Yutei V'yamlik Mafutei, V'chayechon V'yomechon U'chayei Kol Beit Yisrael, V'agala V'zman Kori V'yomru Amen. Yehei Shnei Rabba Mevach Le'olam Amen Amaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach Yitpahar V'yitmamam V'yitnaseh. Yitadar, Yitalel, Yitalal, Shemei Kusha, Biritu. Ve'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, Tu'ushbechata v'nechmata, Da'amiram v'ne'oma v'imru amen. Yehei Shalom Arav Amin Shemaya, V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. V'oseh shalom b'imroha, U'yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say Amen.
Amen. Put your cedar down and reach out to one another. Sing together also.
Oseh shalom b'imroha, U'yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom.
my Ken Mailhander. When we were scheduling the date, Mary said to me, whatever date you check, make sure that...
Sing it for the Cohn family. Your part. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Just walk beside me and be my friend. And together we will walk in the land of Hashem. Like you need it now.